Hello and welcome to Fenton Live. I'm Brad Smith. Today is April 7th, 2020, and I am here with Brad Wright. Brad, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a lifetime resident of Fenton, other than going away to college for a few years. I moved back after school and took a job teaching in 1999 at Fenton High School as the choir director. And I've been here ever since. I am married to Jennifer, my wife, and we have 4 children, and just recently a Springer Doodle puppy.
We just took on a couple of puppies ourselves recently, so I know the trials and tribulations that go along with that. So,
yeah.
So tell me, what's it like? You know, you grew up in Fenton, and then sometime after you graduated from Fenton, you became a teacher.
Yeah.
How was that transition?
It was, excuse me. I went to Western for school, and then I got a job teaching in a small rural community called Vicksburg on the other side of the state for about 3 years. And I felt really quite prepared when I got to Western. And when I got out, I felt prepared for my new job, although it's funny because you can go through all sorts of methods classes, but nothing really prepares you for teaching until you know, your feet hit the fire, and then it's like go time. I taught there for several years, and then the job in Fenton opened up, and I applied and got it. And I've been back here ever since, and it's been fantastic. I love this town. I love the school.
Yeah, as do I. And, you know, I'm a lifelong Fenton resident myself, so I haven't ventured too far. I actually live a couple of blocks away from where I grew up, or not even a couple of blocks, but very close to the home I grew up in.
I actually am living in the home I grew up in.
Oh, look at that. We don't venture too far, do we?
No.
So, you know, there's a lot going on right now with the pandemic. Everyone in your house healthy?
Everybody is healthy. Thankfully, you know, we're super vigilant, you know, about everything. I have this thing going on constantly with my voice that is, I attribute it to acid reflux. And I always sound kind of hoarse now, but other than that, you know, everybody's felt good. We've been trying to social distance as much as we can. I am the one that ventures out to do the shopping. We're very careful about wiping down groceries and all of that good stuff when we bring them into the house. But I also like to be outside, so we've been doing hikes, like at Donner Trail at the north end of town. My son and I just went out kayaking today at Lake Panema. Again, very kind of socially distant activities, but just trying to stay, you know, a little bit physical during this time when it's easy to just stay cooped up in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I understand. I've been the one going out and doing the grocery shopping as well, which is not a task that I generally take on at home, but and it's a whole new process at the grocery store. It's
Right. And
quite a difference.
I usually try to go, like my normal grocery shopping routine is to go like Sunday morning early. And even though I'm still doing that, it's now way more busy than it used to be. So I get in there, I try to stay away from people, you know, keep my distance, get in, get out, and that's it.
Yeah, it's not always easy, and there's still some chatty Cathys in the grocery store.
Yeah. Which, yep. So you just got to try to be polite, but safe distance.
Yeah, absolutely. So being a teacher, and especially teaching performance classes like you do with music, how is that different now that you guys had to go to an online environment?
It's it's a lot of uncharted waters. I've been looking at different videos, and I've been parts of different groups on social media, getting ideas. And ever since we've been home, I've been trying to put stuff out, activities and stuff for my students. But being in a performance-based class where, like, our biggest objective is to make music in an ensemble setting is really a challenge, because you're not doing that. And I see a lot of people putting videos together of virtual choirs and things like that, and it's really cool. But it doesn't replace the what you can get out of being, I guess it would be like, you've played sports before, Brad, I know. And I would try to compare it to if you played team sports and then all of a sudden you can't play team sports and you're trying to play team sports virtually, the kind of challenges that would present, it's like that.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
great analogy.
I just had a video chat today, this morning, with one of my choirs, and I only had a few members show up because I did it at 11 a.m. And they said, you might want to move this back a little bit because everybody's sleep schedule is really messed up. So I'm like, okay, so, whereas, I would normally see those kids at like 11 o'clock or so, everybody is sleeping in.
Yeah.
Um, but like anything else, I'm trying to look at it like an opportunity and not so much like, oh, this is horrible that this is happening. It's like, no, this is a chance for me to work on, online learning chops and trying to be creative with some of the things I throw at my students. And like I said, it's uncharted waters for everybody. And so there isn't a paradigm, there isn't a schematic for how to do this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and I've noticed too that even just on your social media profile, you've been putting some music out there, and me and Julio has been stuck in my head since I saw you recording the other day. It's been great.
Yeah. It's funny because one of my groups, the Ambassadors, we were actually working on a really cool vocal jazz arrangement of me and Julio, and we were getting it ready for competition. And of course, competition's been canceled. And but I'm still, at home trying to play parts into. I use GarageBand a lot at my house, and so what I will do is I'll go through and I'll play some parts in. I'm like, okay, here's the bass part, and I'll change that to an MP3 and then attach it to a Google Classroom and go, okay, basses, here's your part, practice it, and then make a recording and send it back to me.
Oh, very cool.
And so that's one of the ways but it's funny you brought up me and Julio. Yeah, that's one of the tunes we've been working on.
Yeah, well, and I heard it again on the radio today, and it's it's one of those songs that's stuck in the back of my head.
Yep.
And I just I keep hearing Queen of Corona, and you hear so much about Corona, and then Queen of Corona with Paul Simon, and just
Right.
it sticks. It's
Awesome.
sticky. It's a catchy tune to begin with.
Right.
So clearly students are missing out on learning opportunities, especially on the performance side, but it sounds like you're trying to address that, and it's forcing use of technology, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
People have to improvise, adapt, and overcome. And you talk about people sleeping in. I've worked from home for years, and the one piece of advice that I give people often is that you have to maintain a normal sleep-wake schedule. If you don't, you will stay up later and sleep in, and before you know it, the entire day's passed you by. And
Right.
I think it's important for people to get up as close to the sunrise as they can, and not stay up too late after the sun falls, just to maintain that normal balance in your life. And I know when I stay on that rhythm, I'm far more productive in everything
Yes.
that I do.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I put out to my students is like, try your best to maintain a schedule, even though your schedule is different. My schedule usually consists of waking up about 5:30 still, and I'll wake up, have coffee, let the dog out, get on the computer. I'll maybe grade some assignments that students have turned in. I'll think about the day and the things that I want to accomplish. And then the family starts to wake up after a couple hours, make some breakfast, maybe go for a hike, sit down at the computer, start working on pushing out assignments or things for my students. And that in this situation, I have found that has helped me in my mental and emotional state more than almost anything else, is just having that. And that's the part, honestly, Brad, I worry a lot about my students not maintaining that schedule. School is so helpful for students, as far as that routine and that regime of you're waking up, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And don't get me wrong, it's not perfect for everybody, but by and large, for the majority of our students, it's really helpful. And when we don't have that, maybe mom or dad is an essential worker, or maybe I live in a single parent home and there's nobody there to get me up and make sure I'm eating, make sure I'm getting out of bed. And it's so easy, like you said, to like all of a sudden I'm waking up at 11, 12 o'clock, half the day is
Right.
gone. And that's tough because it's a downward spiral.
Right. It brings me up to two additional questions I have for you. One, you're doing so much with technology. Do most or all of your students have access to the technology to continue with the performance work?
It's very hard to know exactly which students have technology. When this whole thing was going down, our administration was really on the ball, and they got with our technology department and offered school-owned Chromebooks to students that did not have technology at home. Now, that's just one half of the equation because, as you know, you still need connectivity.
Right.
And there were things about certain hotspots as far as Wi-Fi goes, and I think Comcast offered free Wi-Fi to families. And so I don't know which of my students do and don't. Actually, that's not true. I know students that do have because I've been getting assignments from them, but I've got students that may have technology but haven't done any assignments. And I know students that have technology that haven't done assignments, so it's hard to figure that out. And one of the things that one of the schools that I teach at, the teachers have been talking about, let's start collecting a list of names of students that we haven't received stuff from because maybe they aren't able to do these things.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
been a big challenge for the schools is knowing who does and who doesn't have technology.
Well, and it's hard, with just getting communication out, 'cause so much of our communication is electronic, and if there are those families
Bingo.
that don't have access to electronic communications, and it's not like the schools, running a printing press and getting information mailed out. It's got to be
Yeah,
very challenging.
yeah, it's a huge shift. In not one that we're not capable of doing, but just when you've done everything like this for so long, and then all of a sudden, like, no, we're going to do it differently now. It's like, okay, there's so many things that you have to take into account, and I do think our administration team, our principals, and the school board and our superintendent have done a good job of trying to get out in front of the curve and try to make sure that we are offering help where help is needed.
Yeah, that's great. You talked about the structure of the school,
Yeah.
the school day, and how important it is to students, and food being one part of that. So many students get breakfast and lunch at the school, and now with that option taken away, the biggest thing with all of this, with the pandemic, has been around food supply for me.
Right.
And more specifically, I'm thinking about those families that work in these jobs that they're closed down. They're a salesperson at a car dealership, or they're a server at a restaurant, or a cook, or a bartender.
Right.
That there's no income right now, and to ensure that there's food on the table, and that there's an adequate food supply for everyone is the one thing that I've been very, very concerned with. And I know with the school system, when the kids come in there, you can see if if they're being well nutrition, if they get access to good nutrition, or if there's any kind of domestic violence. It's visible in students, and those kinds of checks and balances aren't available to those kids now. And you
Right.
just hope that it's great, everyone's doing well and is happy and healthy, and and in these strange times that strange things aren't happening. But that's been the one concern is around food, and making sure people have enough food on the table.
Yeah. Um, Fenton, for a while, for the past couple of weeks, we're doing the food service was preparing food. And we had a huge list of volunteers showing up to take, prepared meals and take them out to cars and things like that. And unfortunately, I believe that had to cease just because of the governor's order. One of the hard things is, Brad, when you and I grew up, I know your family a little bit, and you know, growing up and playing Little League and stuff like that, like one of the harsh realizations for me when I became a teacher is the notion that for some kids, school is the best place. It's the place where they're safe. It's the place where they have food, and that really gets you as a teacher, because when I grew up, like, yeah, school was okay, but home was way better, you know?
Right.
And so it forced me to have to think in terms of my students who maybe home isn't the best place. And even though, you know, growing up, we always said, you know, nobody really likes school, even though we might have, we wouldn't admit it. For some of my kids, for some of the students that I know, I think school is a really great place because they know they're going to be safe and they know they're going to be fed. And that's been a real struggle for a lot of the teachers that I work with, knowing that what's happening to my students. I
Yeah.
don't see them on a daily basis. Are they being fed? Are they you know, being taken care of? And that's a harsh unknown.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You know, well, it's not funny, but I was taken by your comment that the school is the best place for them. I had never considered that. You know, in my mind, I have this thought that, oh, there's kids that they don't have food. I had never considered the possibility that, you know, the one thing that was the safest place for them or the best place for them is now not available to them.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is that's just it's a scary thing to think about.
right. And so one of the best in this situation, the best thing that I can do is to provide some stability and to keep being, you know, the Mr. Right that they know, even though that's an online virtual Mr. Right presence. Um, so, like I said, video conferencing with students. I know so many teachers that are doing that using Zoom or using Google Meet or Flipgrid or any of these other wonderful online resources, just to check in with their kids and to say, hey, how you doing? What are you up to? What are you reading? Are you doing your art project? And just for those students to have the reassurance that their teachers are still there, they're still concerned about them, they're still willing to teach them, is super important. We all have, you know, we all have, you know, all these different personalities in our classes and stuff like that, but we also have those students that we look out for, that we know, you know, we need to be there for them. And being that one, maybe that one stable thing in their lives is super important. And now that they don't have that every day, that's a concern.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and it shows that you're passionate about your work, and you know, it comes through. I've seen you at the school and in the performances. You're definitely passionate about your work. But when you
Thanks.
connect with your students at that level,
Yeah.
that, you know, that's above and beyond what I think most people would consider for a job. You know, and the fact that you have that emotional attachment to your students in a very healthy way, I think is great.
I
Uh,
appreciate it. You know, I just want to say though that I'm not in the minority. Like,
I
I,
don't believe you are. Yeah.
you know, all of the colleagues that I have, every one of them would be telling you the same thing. They're just, you know, they're concerned about their students. They want their students to be safe. They want them to be healthy. But yeah, I do like to connect with my students. You know, on that personal level, because that's important. Like, we had great teachers that did that with us,
Right.
and we remember those
Absolutely.
teachers.
Yeah, I still love seeing those teachers around town too. It's great. You know, it's
Yeah,
interesting when you approach them. The oddest thing that I've had, and I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but when I went to parent teacher conferences and my child had a teacher that I had, that it took me back a little bit. I was like, wait a second, I'm on the
yep,
opposite side of the table here.
yep, yep. I've had that, and that's weird. And this year was a first for me, because I, for the first time in my career, had the child of a former student.
Yeah.
So I've reached that. I knew I was old, but Now it's official.
I don't feel old. I know we're
I
older,
don't
but
either.
I still feel like I'm 12 years old. Like I
Right.
still feel
I
like
do
it's a nice
too.
day. I want to go outside and play.
And yet I was just talking with my wife and we're like, yeah, we have a colleague on our staff that could be our daughter because she's that young or we're that old. One of the two.
It's crazy. Life is crazy. So speaking
Yeah.
about life, with this whole situation, and we've been shut in for almost a month now. What lessons do you want your kids to learn from this?
I want them to take away that um, the life that we lead is precious, and all of the stuff that we get to do is just cake compared to how a lot of the world has to live. I was like I'm talking with friends and I'm talking with family and I'm talking with my wife, and I'm like, we have heat, we have shelter, we have water, we have food, we have all of the basic stuff that we need. Everything else is just cake on top of that. Um, so I want them to take away an appreciation for one, how fragile things can be and how you should appreciate them when you have them. Um, Two, I want them to understand that resilience is a great character attribute. And it's important to learn resilience. It's important to learn that, you know, this is not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. This is, with any luck for my kids, it's going to be a story that they can tell their grandkids all about this pandemic from back in 2020. Um, but I also want them to take away that when things go horribly wrong, you grew up in a great community of people that took care of each other. And I see that all the time on Facebook, and I'm sure you do too, about, hey, does somebody need this? People are constantly checking in with us. And does anybody have this, or we just had today, Brad, we had one of my daughter's teachers make a trip out to our house and drop off books on our front porch because my daughter said she's out of reading material and this teacher brought stuff over.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Right. I want them to take away from this more than anything that they live in a great town full of great people that are more than willing to take care of them. And that to me is one of the reasons I wanted to move back to Fenton, is because this is such a great town. This is such a great community of people. And I have parents of students that are checking in with me almost on a daily basis, and I check in with them. And that's what we do. We take care of each other.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and it's always been that way. Like you, I grew up in this town, and my dad's been on the fire department for nearly 40 years, and so I've seen it firsthand and been exposed to it. And it's a great community of people, and that's why, quite honestly, why we wanted to start up this little channel here is to give people a mechanism when they cannot be face to face and can't be part of regular conversations, to bring the conversation online and get in touch with people that are in the community and hear from them directly. How are they doing? Do people have enough food? And my biggest concern, quite honestly, has been, do people have enough food on the table? Because if food supply gets interrupted, chaos is going to ensue. And if we can collectively get ahead of that, we're all going to be better for it.
Right. And there probably aren't too many of us that don't have at least several days of food in the pantry, in the fridge, that it's easy to share,
Oh, absolutely.
And I agree.
So hopefully we're gonna be get the all clear here near the end of the month, or very soon.
That'd be great.
It would be fantastic. What do you look forward to doing once we get back to business as usual?
Oh my gosh. Seeing people face to face, hugging people, shaking hands, fist bumping people. My wife and I love the fire hall. As a matter of fact, every once in a while, I'll see your dad in there with the fire guys, the fire department. Just looking forward to a plate of their pulled pork nachos. I guess just those the everyday kind of things that we take for granted, that when they're gone, it's like, oh my gosh, it is so weird. You know, as a teacher, it's funny because you get the call for a snow day. You're like, yes, we got a snow day. We got a free day to do whatever we want. And now you're looking at like, there's not going to be school for the rest of the year. And that doesn't mean you're not working, but you're not reporting to that building at, 7 o'clock or whatever. And it's like, I don't know that I like that. So I guess just the normal everyday stuff, going to the store and not having to worry if it's essential or not. Yeah, just I guess that the sense of normalcy that we don't really seem to have right now. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's a bit of peacefulness that comes along with being in quarantine
There
at
is.
first, but then when the stir craziness sets in, you long to do all the things that you've always done and the freedom to do those things. So,
Right. And it is a reminder of how lucky we are. Currently our oldest daughter is in Ethiopia, and she's over there, and it's like sometimes they have internet connectivity and sometimes they don't. And it's a reminder, having her there is a reminder of the fact that the majority of the world, a lot of the people in this world do not enjoy the kind of things that we do. Being able to go to VG's and the shelves are stocked with food as much as you want. And we're so fortunate. We're so blessed to have that.
absolutely, we are. I got to imagine it's difficult for you to have your daughter halfway around the world right now.
It's not fun.
No,
It's not fun.
yeah. My oldest daughter was in Marquette, and we quickly went and grabbed her and brought her back, and that was stressful. Just her being 6 hours away, I can't imagine the
Right.
stress.
Didn't you have to do that in a snowstorm?
I did, got it done. It's the things we do. It's
Right.
same way you do anything for your kid, I would do anything for mine. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's part of what makes this community great. Is that
True.
we
That's how
take
we
care of
were
our
raised.
families, and
Yeah.
everybody looks out for one another.
Yes.
Well, Brad, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to meet with me.
Very welcome. I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, and we wish you and your family well, and hopefully we'll be able to shake hands and fist bump here in the near future.
That would be great.
All right,
That'd be
thanks
great. I
again,
look forward
Brad.
to it.
Take care.
Okay,
Have a
Brad.
great night.
You too.